the monarch butterfly. We're going to be looking at the history of Earth Day, monarch butterflies, and some of the plants you're going to find around our garden. I'll be presenting today alongside Josie Holland and Noah Solomon. If you guys want to pop your webcams on real quick so everybody knows who you are.
I've got mine on. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, I don't know. I can see a couple of them there. Okay, so that's Josie right there, right on. And then I guess Noah's presenting. He might have a little bit of trouble throwing it on.
Camera on as well.
Oh, okay, right on. Awesome. And that's Noah right there. So those are going to be the other two presenters today. Let me just pull up my notes here real quick. All right, let's dive right into it. So what exactly is Earth Day? Well, Earth Day is one of the largest global events, and it's celebrated each year on April 22nd. This is a holiday dedicated to focusing our attention on the environment, a day that reminds us to take a step back from our busy lives and think about how we can improve on our own habits to better our world. This is a day to turn off the screens, go ahead and step outside, pick up some trash, and reduce, reuse, and recycle. So I want to share this quick little video real quick. Just a reminder to pick up trash. Today's a good day as any, but yeah, go ahead and play that. Right on. So that was just a little reminder video. It's like, if you're not going to pick up your trash, who's going to, you know? So how did Earth Day come to be? Well, before the 70s, factories were free to fill the air with clouds of toxic smoke, and they could dump all of their waste into nearby streams. There was no EPA, no Clean Air Act, no Clean Water Act. The image shown above was actually taken in 1969 after the Cuyahoga River in Cleveland caught fire, and that was just from all the waste runoff from nearby factories. I think it's also worth noting that this was the 13th time the river had caught on fire. Definitely not somewhere I'd want to swim. So right here, this was January 28th, 1969. An offshore oil rig off the coast of Santa Barbara, California, experienced a blowout, and at the time, it was the largest oil spill to occur. In the picture above, you can see workers are using pitchforks to pick up oil-soaked straw along the beach, which was their method of cleaning it up at the time. So 1970, a time to take action and the very first Earth Day. So during this time, campuses were holding teach-ins in order to talk about the issues surrounding the Vietnam War. Senator Gaylord Nelson saw this as an opportunity, and he had the idea to hold a teach-in to talk about the issues surrounding the environment. Senator Gaylord Nelson announced the idea for the very first Earth Day, which was a large-scale grassroots demonstration against the degradation of America's natural resources. They set the date for their teach-in to be April 22nd, which was a weekday falling between spring break and finals, so that as many students as they could participate. They recruited a young activist named Dennis Hayes to help organize the event. So Hayes kind of took this idea and ran with it. He realized the importance of this event and built a national staff of 85 to promote events in their own locations all across the United States. And they finally gave a title to this day, and they called it Earth Day. This quickly sparked national media attention all over the US, and people took to the streets, parks, auditoriums, pretty much anywhere they could find to demonstrate against 150 years of industrial development. There were massive rallies held across the nation, and everyone united together around one common value, which was preserving the environment. Hayes is actually pictured there on the left. He's posing in front of one of the very first Earth Day banners. It says environmental teach-in. So there was a lot of progress in the 70s after this. In response to the national attention surrounding Earth Day, politicians began passing numerous acts relating to environmental conservation. The Environmental Education Act established education programs to encourage understanding of policies and supportive activities, and it was designed to enhance environmental quality and maintain ecological balance. Then, in response to confusing, often very ineffective environmental protection laws, President Richard Nixon created the EPA to fix the national environmental guidelines and to monitor and enforce them. Some of the other acts that were passed during the 1970s was the Clean Air Act and the Occupational Safety and Health Act. And then 2 years later, Congress passed the Clean Water Act. A year after that, Congress passed the Endangered Species Act. And soon after came the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act. And these laws have protected millions of men, women, and children from disease, death, and have protected hundreds of species from extinction. So 1990, Earth Day goes global. As 1990 approached, a group of environmental leaders approached Denis Hayes to once again organize another major campaign for the planet. This time, Earth Day went global, mobilizing 200 million people in 141 countries. Earth Day 1990 gave a huge boost to recycling efforts worldwide and helped pave the world for the 1992 United Nations Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro. It also prompted President Bill Clinton to award Senator Nelson the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the highest honor given to civilians in the United States. So 2010 was a billion acts of green. Earth Day continued to grow throughout the new millennium and continued to push for climate action and clean energy. On its 40th anniversary, it gathered more than 250,000 people in Washington, D.C. for a climate rally. Internationally, the day was celebrated in 192 countries. The Earth Day Network channeled the energy into launching a billion acts of green, which is the world's largest environmental service campaign. The organizers asked participants to do just one thing that would help our planet, whether it was making their homes more energy efficient or biking to work. The initiative is still going strong and now has over 2 billion acts registered. So 2020, the start of the pandemic, the start of virtualization. With the pandemic and restrictions on public gatherings around the world, Earth Day went digital and live streamed events held all around the world for 24 hours of action. Denis Hayes said, despite the amazing success and decades of environmental progress, we find ourselves facing an even more dire, almost existential set of global environmental challenges. From loss of biodiversity to climate change to plastic pollution, all of it calls for action at all levels of government. And while the coronavirus forced us to keep our distance and stay inside, it definitely did not stop Earth Day from keeping voices down around the world. So at this time, I would like to go ahead and introduce Josie Holland, who's going to be talking a little bit more about monarchs, the history of them, and the culture that surrounds them. So take it away, Josie.
Thanks, Greg. So we'll start off with when was the first discovery of the monarchs. So the monarch butterfly was first discovered in 1758 by Carl Linnaeus. Linnaeus was a Swedish scientist who studied botany and zoology. He was also famous for classifying organisms. Linnaeus is responsible for the names and classifications for many organisms, including the monarch butterfly. Here are the monarch butterfly scientific classifications. So as far as kingdom, they're Animalia. The phylum is Arthropoda. Class, Insecta. Order, Lepidoptera. Family is Nymphalidae. Genus is Danaus. And species is Danaus plexippus. The reason these butterflies are called monarch is because the King of England at the time was King William III, who is also known as the Prince of Orange. Monarch butterflies and related cultures. So monarchs were very important to the Mizawa and the Atomi tribes. The butterflies filled the skies during the tribe's yearly harvest, and over the winter, the monarch butterfly can be found in southern Mexico. The Mizawa and Atomi tribes are thought to be the two oldest tribes to continuously inhabit the same area that the monarch butterfly settles for the winter. Both of these tribes have included the monarch butterfly in their traditions and rituals. In fact, the ethno-historical record indicates that since before the Spanish Inquisition, these butterflies have been seen as the tool of the sun god. A quote from Correa Perez from 1987, "From the mouth of the god of creation, the sun appeared every day, and that the sun rays during the winter season became butterflies, seeds of the sun, to cover the earth and humans, fertilize the soil, and pollinate the flowers, decorate the life and the air." In Mexico, monarch butterflies are seen everywhere during Dia de los Muertos. People use the image of these butterflies for costumes, and the real butterflies are known to be soul carriers. The butterflies symbolize the souls of past friends and family members visiting in the living world once again. During the time of Dia de los Muertos, celebrated all day and all night of November 1st, these bright orange butterflies come around and visit those of us still living in this world. The family decorates the deceased relative's grave with bright colors, and the butterflies come around to greet the people as if they were their relatives visiting them for one night only. Over a span of around 40 years, the population of the monarch butterfly species has dropped dramatically. In the 1980s, the population of the monarchs were counted to be around 4.5 million while on their way to California. But during the same part of their migration 17 years later, the counted population had dropped significantly to around 1.7 million. In 2018, the population was counted at 200,000, and then in 2019, the population fell to 30,000. And on December 15th of last year, the monarch butterflies were officially added to the endangered species list. So why are these butterflies dying? The milkweed plant is very important for the repopulation and feeding of the monarch butterflies. Most people know global warming has a big effect on the world, but we normally look past the smaller things that it harms. When the weather suddenly gets cold, it can kill the butterflies since they can't survive cold temperatures like other butterflies can. The significant decline in the monarch butterfly population cannot be attributed to one cause. Many experts disagree about the main cause, but most can agree that it relates to the well-being of the milkweed plant, which shares a symbiotic relationship with the butterfly of this species. The milkweed plant, which is the monarch caterpillar's only source of food, contains chemicals called cardenolides, which when consumed by the caterpillar are stored and used as a deterrent for predators because these chemicals taste really bad. But according to Falden et al., these chemicals can increase in concentration dramatically when the milkweed plants are faced with rising temperatures due to global warming. While the caterpillars can metabolize these chemicals to an extent, this sharp rise in concentration can be fatal to the already dwindling population. Another challenge these beautiful butterflies face is the destruction of milkweed plants due to the use of glyphosate herbicides, namely Roundup, in and around glyphosate-resistant food crops, which happen to share the ideal environment for this milkweed. So monarch migration. Monarch butterflies use the location of the sun and time of day to navigate during their migration journey, similar to how voyagers would use a sundial to tell the time. Oftentimes, environmental cues, like the changes in weather and the temperature, play a part in the butterfly's navigation as well. When flying, they will use light breezes to cross long distances, such as small bodies of water. And at nighttime, the butterflies at nighttime or during colder weather. They can be found using the thick canopy of trees as cover. The use of the trees allows them to group closely together, as you can see in the pictures, retaining the heat from the thousands of bodies to keep warm. These trees are often reused every year as they come back through the same places. In the mornings, the monarchs will bask in the sunlight and recharge in the heat. Multiple generations make up one migration cycle, usually between 3 to 4 generations just to make the trip from Mexico to the northern United States and Canada. Milkweed plays a pivotal role in the success of this multi-generational journey. As the monarchs make their way north, they stop and lay their eggs on the leaves of milkweed plants along the way. These leaves are the primary source of nutrients for the caterpillars when they hatch. And over the years, as areas along the monarch's route have urbanized and torn these vital plants down, the number of monarchs have dwindled drastically. As far as monarch migration in Arkansas specifically, we can see these butterflies in the spring and in the fall as they make their way to and from Mexico. Here we have a map to show the monarch migration, as well as where they can be spotted in the United States during what times of the year. Now we'd like to say a quick thank you to some of the people that helped make our garden expansion possible. Thank you to Adam at Tractor Supply for 5 yards of topsoil and compost, to NWA Stone for a pallet of stones, to Alexis and Aaron at AMO Enterprises for 2 pallets of flagstone, as well as their time and materials, to Aaron at Ewing for landscaping cloth and cloth staples, and lastly, a huge thank you to the Sustainability Project Group for all of their hard work on the garden. Lastly, here we have some images of the garden itself and us working on it. As you can see, we are doubling the size as well as doing some much needed cleaning of the garden bed previously installed. And if you'll look in the bottom right, we have a picture of some of the stones donated to us. And now I'll hand it off to Noah to discuss the plants we plan to use in the butterfly garden.
All right, thank you so much, Josie. In this next section, I will be talking about the plants that can actually be found in the NWAC butterfly garden, as well as where they can be found as naturalized species and their uses by indigenous peoples. There's a lot of information in the next 17 slides, so just bear with me. First, we're going to start off with bee balm, or Monarda didyma. This plant is commonly found in thickets, moist woods, and along the bottomlands along stream banks. This plant attracts hummingbirds and is a larval host to the hermit sphinx, orange mint moth, and the raspberry pyrosta. It is oftentimes a destination year after year for these pollinators, with roots and stems spreading out and growing thicker every year. This plant grows best in rich soil and prefers medium to high moisture saturation and requires partial to full sun. Bee balm can sometimes suffer from powdery mildew if crowded and is generally avoided by deer and rabbits. So the dried flower heads have been used as a tool for the sucking of broth and soup. They've also been used similarly to apply water to rawhide for ease during curing. The leaves were chewed as well as used to make a poultice to treat colds and reduce fevers. It was also used to relieve flatulence and settle babies suffering from colic, which is an extended period of discomfort due to gas and muscle spasms in the growing digestive system. The bulbs were also, bulb infusions were also applied to swellings and sores, and they were used for female obstructions. Using beaver castor oil as a base, bee balm was mixed with other plants in order to create hair, body, or clothing perfumes. Second, we've got sweet fennel, probably one you recognize. It's Phoeniculum vulgare. It's an herbaceous perennial that can be found throughout North America as a naturalized species. It prefers moist, organically rich soil and requires full sun. This flower attracts butterflies of all kinds and is a popular food source for the swallowtail butterfly caterpillar. Sweet fennel was used by the Cherokee tribe as a gastrointestinal aid and for gynecological problems or colds and illnesses in children. The Hopi tribes would also smoke it like tobacco. In modern times, this plant is still commonly used as an ingredient in many foods. For example, the seeds may be harvested and used as a spice to be included in baked goods or sausages. The leaves are also quite fragrant and can be used in salads or as a flavoring for potatoes or fish. We've got butterfly weed, or Asclepias tuberosa. This is a hardy flowering plant and can be found in the eastern and southern United States in hardiness zones 3 through 9. This plant is drought tolerant and will thrive in poor soil. It does, however, require full sun. Also a perennial, the new growth on this plant starts to sprout in late spring. This plant can be found in dry or rocky open woods, glades, prairies, fields, and roadsides throughout these regions. Unlike many of the other milkweeds, this species does not have a milky sapped stems. If you visit our garden during the summer, you will see many species of butterfly feeding on the nectar of these colorful flowers. And if you're lucky, you might see monarch butterfly caterpillars feeding on the leaves. Medicinal purposes include use for breast, stomach, and intestinal pains. The seeds were boiled in water and called new milk, which was used to control diarrhea. It was also used as an expectorant and taken for pleurisy, a condition marked by chest wall and lung inflammation. An infusion of the root was also used for heart troubles and taken by women after childbirth. Lastly, stems of the butterfly weed were also used by indigenous tribes to make belts. Next, we've got wing stem, or yellow ironweed, or Verbena alternifolia. This bright yellow flower is found in eastern North America in zones 4 through 8. You can find this plant in low, open, or rich woods, wood margins, meadows, thickets, and in areas containing recently redeposited sand and silt from the bottoms of rivers and streams. This plant thrives with frequent watering, but can survive with little to no water for a short period of time. This perennial also needs to grow in full sun or partial shade. The name wing stem comes from the formation of the leaves, as the leaf tissue extends beyond the leaf base and down the stems of the plant. Yellow ironweed has many uses. The Kiowa tribes ate the pressed blossoms of this flower as a sweet chew, sort of like chewing tobacco. They also used this as a purple dye, and the fibers of the plant were made into mats, bedding, and rugs. Next, we've got scaly blazing star, or Liatris squarosa. The research on this native plant and details on its cultivation techniques are minimal, as are any description of its use by indigenous people for medicinal and crafting purposes. However, the information that we were able to collect describes this perennial as being found throughout the eastern and central states of North America. But it's generally highly concentrated in clusters, mainly in the forests of the southeastern United States. Scaly blazing star is often found in dry, rocky areas of native prairies and the lightly wooded savannas. Scaly blazing star was known to be used as a diuretic, a gargle for a sore throat, or to treat snake bites and insect wounds. Purple coneflower, or Echinacea purpurea, is one of the most popular type of coneflower and can be found in the eastern, southeastern, midwestern, and midwestern United States. from zones 3 through 8. This plant is very hardy and can adapt to drought, heat, humidity, and can tolerate growing in poor soil. You will often find this plant in moist prairies, meadows, and open woods. The purple coneflower is an example of a perennial that is visited by native fauna year-round. If you visit the garden in the winter, you may see goldfinches or other birds harvesting and feeding on the seeds of the flower head, and in late spring, blossoms bloom and are frequently visited by many types of pollinators, as well as hosting several types of insects as a safe habitat. According to the website Plants for a Future, this genus of plant is probably the most frequently used plant by North American tribes to make herbal remedies. They had a very wide range of applications, and many of these uses have been confirmed by modern science. One of the reasons for this high usage in medicinal remedies is the ease of cultivation for this plant. But most commonly, it was used as a universal application to treat the bites and stings of all types of insects. An infusion of the plant was also used to treat snake bites, and it was generally harvested in the fall and dried for later use. Next, we've got inland sea oats, or Chesmanthium latifolium. This ornamental grass can be found in the eastern United States and northern Mexico in zones 3 through 8. This grass will grow in poor soil, but prefers moist and fertile soil. Likewise, it can grow in partial shade, but prefers full sun. You can identify this grass from others by looking for the flat seed clusters that droop at the top. The seed heads emerge green, but can turn purplish bronze by late summer. The common name inland sea oats comes from the similarity in design of the seed heads to that of the oats that you and I would normally consume. In our garden, this ornamental grass will not be cut back in the fall like most ornamental grasses would be. This practice is beneficial for the local insect populations, which will overwinter in the hollow stems. According to Plants for a Future, this perennial was generally a food crop for the Cocopah tribes in Mexico. The seed would be cooked and then used in making bread and biscuits, or was sometimes ground into a flour and consumed as a mush, similar to cream of wheat. Next, we've got another one you probably recognize, flat parsley, or Petroselenium crispum. This is a biennial plant, meaning it will last for 2 years before dying out. It grows best in consistently moist, rich soil and can tolerate full sun to light shade. Parsley is used worldwide as a culinary herb and grows in clumps that can reach 12 inches long and just as wide. Some people may be questioning why this aromatic herb would be grown in a butterfly garden rather than at a home vegetable garden. This is because the caterpillar of the black swallowtail butterfly enjoys feeding on this plant. In addition to its obvious culinary applications, an infusion of the top and root were taken as an abortive for female obstructions, or taken to treat kidney and bladder problems, as well as a condition referred to as dropsy, or more commonly known as edema. This is an abnormal accumulation of fluid in a body cavity. Next, we've got pale-spiked lobelia, or Lobelia spicata. This plant is found all over North America in prairies, savannas, thickets, bluffs, limestone glades, abandoned fields, and moist meadows in woodlands or near rivers. This plant prefers full to partial sun and moist to slightly dry conditions. It requires mineral-rich soil and may even benefit from rocky soil where these rocks often yield high mineral content. This perennial has a flower that attracts many species of bees, as well as other nectar-seeking insects, such as small butterflies and moths. Most mammals avoid feeding on this plant as the leaves and stems contain a watery white latex that is toxic. However, this toxin doesn't seem to affect deer, as they seem to be immune. Lobelia was used as an alternative to tobacco and was a traditional North American tribal remedy for a wide range of conditions. This plant was consumed for the treatment of asthma, bronchitis, whooping cough, and pleurisy. Topically, the plant can be used in treating rheumatism, tennis elbow, whiplash injuries, boils, or ulcers. Generally, they would use the whole plant, and it could be harvested when the lower fruits are ripe, and these can be eaten fresh or dried. Next, we've got Joe Pye weed, or Eutrochium purpureum. This is a herbaceous perennial plant found in eastern and central North America from zones 4 through 9. This plant does best in full sun, but can tolerate part shade. It also needs consistent watering so that the soil remains wet. This species generally grows better in open woodland areas. If you visit our garden, you may notice a vanilla-like scent coming from this flower. Most butterflies seem to find this scent just as attractive as we do. Again, it's very important for this flower to remain watered because the leaves may scorch otherwise. Joe Pye weed was historically used as an herbal remedy for rheumatism, gallstones, and dropsy. The roots were said to be the most potent part of the plant, and when dried, can be used by herbalists for a diuretic tea to relieve kidney and urinary problems. Next, we've got white crownbeard, or Verbena virginica. Similarly to scaly blazing star, this plant doesn't seem to have many resources relating to its cultivation. However, it is in the same genus as yellow ironweed. This plant can be found in bottomland thickets and on the edges of forests in the southeastern United States. Unlike yellow ironweed, however, this flower prefers soil rich in calcium carbonate, which will raise the pH of the soil to an acceptable level for this plant. An interesting feature of this plant, which is also sometimes called frostweed, is that during the first frost of the year, it may produce frost flowers, which form when thin layers of ice are extruded from the base of long-stemmed plants like this one. You can actually see a picture of a frost flower down at the bottom right-hand corner. White crownbeard was used by the Chickasaw tribes for many therapeutic purposes. One of the most controversial uses was as an abortifacient, or to induce an abortion. But it was also used for gastrointestinal issues and as a laxative. The Seminole tribes used an infusion of the plant as a bath for mist section, which was a belief of spiritual and soul loss, as well as eye disease, fever, and chills. Texas green eyes, or Berlandiera texana. This plant is found in the south and central United States in zones 6 through 8. This flower tolerates light shade and will also tolerate heat and drought. However, only a well-watered plant will produce flowers. This perennial is native to dry, rocky, or sandy calcareous soils in open woods, glades, and thickets. The common name of green eyes comes from the fact that once the petals are dropped, the calcise, or the green protective layers around the bottom of the petals, remain and resemble green eyes. The roots of this plant were also ground up and smoked to ease nervousness and to instill feelings of courage before battle. This butterfly favorite was also used by tribes as a spice for food, one example being sausage. Next, we've got heartleaf aster, or Symphyotrichum cardifolium. The heartleaf aster is also known as the bluewood aster and can be found in eastern and central North America in zones 3 through 8. It can usually be found in shady locations as it tolerates partial shade well. It prefers moist, rich soils, but requires diversity in its moisture levels. A native to woodlands, forest margins, fields, dry meadows, bluff bases, and stream banks, this perennial flower blooms in late summer to fall and attracts all kinds of beautiful butterflies. The roots of the heartleaf aster were used to create hunting charms and create incense in order to attract deer during hunting. The deer carried a scent similar to this flower between its toes, leaving a trail wherever it walks. The Ojibwe people successfully replicated that scent with the roots and foliage of the heartleaf aster and 18 other plants, which allowed them to train the tribal hunting dogs to track the deer based on the scent. Okay, next we have New England aster, or Symphyotrichum novae Angliae. This plant is in the same genus as the heartleaf aster and can be found in the eastern states of North America in zones 4 through 8. This perennial is known for its hairy cespitose, or a multi-stem build, and prefers moist, rich soil and full sun. Similarly to the heartleaf aster, it will bloom in late summer to early fall and attracts many butterflies. The Cherokee tribes had many uses for the New England aster, including using it as an analgesic, anti-diarrheal, and as an anti-fever agent. The Chippewa tribes used this during hunting to charm and attract game, just like heartleaf aster. The Iroquois tribes used it for dermatological needs and as an ingredient in love potions. It is also reported to be used as a stimulant. Now we've got one of my favorites, evening primrose, or Oenothera biennis. This can be found in eastern North America in zones 4 through 9, and it requires well-draining soil, such as soil with gravel, rocks, or sand in it. Evening primrose requires full sun, therefore it can be found in fields, prairies, glades, thickets, waste ground, disturbed sites, and along roadsides, all of which lack tall foliage that would block out the sun. This biennial will not produce flowers during its first year. However, after its second year, it will produce blossoms that open only at nighttime and close as soon as the sunlight hits them. The flowers are fertilized by night-flying moths that are attracted by the mild lemon fragrance put off by the flowers. They are also fertilized by bees that fly by during the early morning before the flowers close for the day. The Navajo tribes used evening primrose as a hydrating wash for sore skin. The seed oil has been used for several different medicinal applications, particularly in Europe, where it is known by the less common names of King's Cure-All or fever plant. Evening primrose oil is still distributed today as a natural supplement. And the plant only had one documented dietary use by the Cherokee tribes, who would boil the leaves and then fry and eat them. Next, we've got indigo bush, or Amorpha fruticosa. This is found throughout the southern United States in hardiness zones 4 through 9 in the woodland areas, floodplains, stream banks, and swamp margins. It requires well-drained soil and full to partial sunlight. It is flood resistant and can tolerate poor or sandy soils. It's often seen as a weed in commercial applications, but this perennial is enjoyed by many nectar-seeking insects who come back to the same area where the indigo bush grows. The long stems were used as a foundation for bedding material and were also used to make arrow shafts by many North American indigenous tribes. Okay, finally, we have reached the principal plant of our garden, common milkweed, also known as Asclepias quadrifolia. This herbaceous perennial is native to dry, rocky, open woods and often inhabits slopes and ridges throughout central and eastern North America in zones 5 through 8. This plant requires easily drained soil that remains hot and dry. The name milkweed comes from the defense mechanism that the plant possesses. When the leaves or stalks are broken, a milky white latex sap oozes out. This flower is most famous for its almost magnetic attractiveness for many species of butterfly and moth. Plants in this genus are a critical part of the monarch butterfly life cycle because as the monarch butterfly migrates into the US from Mexico, they lay eggs on these plants, which in turn hatch. The caterpillars then feed on the milkweed plants, and in the case of our garden, once they metamorphosize into adult butterflies, they will be able to feed on the abundance of nectar-producing flowers nearby. Plants of this species are not just useful for the monarch butterflies, but were also used by many indigenous groups. For example, the plant was called pleurisy root by early European settlers who used it to treat inflammation of the lungs. The Omaha Nation calls this plant wahatha, or raw medicine, and uses it to cure skin conditions, stomach ailments, chest pains, and the common cold. The US government even listed the root of the butterfly milkweed as an official herbal remedy from 1820 to 1936. Most of the plant can be eaten after repeatedly boiling it in several clean batches of water to remove toxins. Apparently, the young stalks of milkweed are comparable to asparagus, and the young flowers are comparable to broccoli. Native people also harvested the stems of common milkweed in early fall and then soaked them in pond water for 3 weeks. This process allowed for the easy separation of fibers, which were spun with cottontail rabbit fur using a hand-operated drop spindle. The result was a very strong gray-white yarn that was used to weave panels. And from this, they would construct a 6-foot traditional loincloth. Okay, that was the last one of the 17 naturalized species that we will be including in our garden. Next, we're going to show off some of our citations. We won't linger here for very long. We've got 2 pages. Okay, and this is the last slide of our project. And I think at this time, we're going to open it up to questions and answers. If everybody from the butterfly squad would open up their cameras so that we can all answer some questions, that'd be great.
Very well done. Before we move any further, what I'd like to propose is that the first thing we do is everybody open up their mics, please. Participants, silence for you for a moment, but everybody open up your mics, and on 3, let's all give them a big hand for their job well done. 1, 2, 3.
Great job.
Good job.
Very good. So are you guys ready for some questions?
Definitely, bring them on.
Let's do it.
Please, if you have a question, please raise your hand, and as I see them, I will call on y'all. Questions? Are you going to make me ask the questions first? I know one thing, Noah, I want that list of all of those plants. I want all the details because at any minute, something that might hit me while I'm out there and I can just grab one of those plants and chew it up and I'll be, especially my stomach, my God.
Certainly.
Half those plants. I noticed the milkweed, though, didn't have a human application. So the monarchs, that's all for them.
Yeah. Milkweed, actually, that latex sap, like we talked about for the, what was that? Butterfly milkweed. It actually contains cardinalides. I think Josie talked about it earlier, and they're toxic to most mammals and even birds and other predators of the caterpillar. That's part of what makes them, that's part of why the monarch butterfly caterpillars consume those plants.
Fascinating. Any questions? Please raise your hands. Oh, Noah, by the way, are you the one who can take save a list of the participants? Whoever it is that originally did this, is this from the 3:45 meeting on Mondays?
No, this is not the same meeting.
Oh, well, it's not allowing me to take.
I think
Say,
Matt Evans can download attendance.
okay, Matt, please download the attendance, Matt. All right, any other questions before, because I have questions. Okay, I have my first question. Noah, I'm going to start backwards. Noah, obviously you didn't go into much detail into each of the plant. No, I'm just kidding. You obviously did examine these native plants in a very, very deep way. And I'm quite impressed we have 17 native plants and that you showed all of the, science and also value and the different relationship of the plants. But what role, if any, do you see native plants having in your life? Do you see this any differently from before your examination of these native plants?
Yeah, certainly. So before I came to NWAC, I was working as a landscape architect, or not architect, but I worked in the landscaping industry. So some of my side jobs have included installing gardens for neighbors or others that have contacted me. And in the landscaping industry in Northwest Arkansas, it's a pretty strict guidelines for what plants you should use in a home garden or a home flower bed. And most of those plants are not naturalized. They're not from around here. So they don't do well. They often get replaced 3, 4, 5 years down the line. Certainly that's good for me as somebody who is installing those plants. That's more money in my pocket. But if I wanted to build a sustainable garden, I would use every single one of these plants, especially there's one called Joe Pyeweed, which is, like it says in the name, is viewed as a weed. You often see it along roadsides and in ditches, but butterflies really, really enjoy this plant, and so do hummingbirds. So it would be something that you could plant, and you wouldn't just be relying on the beauty of the plants themselves, but they would draw in native species to feed and provide your garden with more life.
So there is a symbiotic relationship in the ecosystem that these enhance, really. So that's wonderful that you've seen that in your experience.
Definitely.
Are there any questions? Professor Dodd, I see you flashing. Do you have a question?
Yes, I was trying to figure out how to raise my hand. So this goes to Noah as well, because I've been in this house for about a year, and last summer I started working on my gardens. And so I've got a kind of a good base of perennials, or I thought I did. But I'm looking at these and I'm wondering, I live in the woods with very rocky, kind of not very good dirt. And so are you going to post a list of these, or is there a way we can access this? Because I was taking notes as quickly as I could, but there are some that I think would just do so well, particularly in my backyard.
And Noah, you I'm assuming you have this all documented.
Yes.
And if you do, and if you send it to me and I can share it with her with your permission.
Of course, yeah, we would be more than happy. And this this presentation has also been recorded if you get a little bit impatient before you get sent the presentation, you can go back and watch that as well.
Well, some of the plants I was familiar with, bee balm, sweet fennel, butterfly weed, some of the first ones, but some of these others, and I'd already planted a few of them, but some of the others I've always loved, but I just hadn't really thought about using them here. So thank you. That was so useful. Thank you.
And don't forget, 2/3 of them are good for stomach problems.
Well, and that will help too.
All right, any other questions before I ask Josie one? All right, Josie, it's a very similar question, except for a different topic. Can you kind of tell us how your view of monarch butterflies changed with this project? What was your view? How did you view monarchs before, and now how do you view monarchs in the context, of course, of all the different areas that you looked at: science, culture, and so forth?
Right. So, well, I'll just start off with beforehand. I've always loved butterflies in general, monarchs in particular, but I did not know that they were endangered or even close to that. So now I'm very interested in their well-being, and I'm already getting plants that I can plant out on my balcony to ensure, like that they can survive. And I'd really like to have more around me. So I really love them, and I've always had a passion for butterflies, and I'm really happy that I ended up in this group with this topic.
What in all of the stuff you looked at in the different areas of the butterfly, from the science to the culture, in particular, let me ask about the culture. What did you think of? What was your perception of examining another people's culture and how central the butterfly was to their culture?
Well, I was actually covering specifically the migration, but I did present I'm not sure who was covering
the culture part. Which one of y'all did the?
That was me. I did the culture.
So Brandy, how did you beforehand see the monarchs, and then when you did that study, how did you view? Did your views change when you examine another culture's view of the monarch?
So I knew that they were used for Dia de los Muertos. Like I've seen documentaries and stuff like that. So that was just kind of common knowledge for me. Then I found a site that went into like deeper context of like other cultures. So the Mazahua and the Atomi, I had no idea, one, that was even a tribe. Like I didn't know about those people. I didn't know that they thought that butterflies came from the sun, and like I knew that they they pollinated everything around them. But I mean, it was super neat to see how they viewed these butterflies and like all of the different things they had to do with their culture. It's just like it changed my perspective on how important these butterflies actually are, that I had no idea of before this project.
I think it's really profound to me also how modern we are and how much science we know, but people in the past, even local people here, were so much more aware. Like Noah was talking about all these purposes for these native plants. So the people around here knew how to use them, and the folks in Mexico understanding the importance of butterflies beyond a pretty being. So that it's kind of ironic, isn't it, that these great cultures and peoples of time were more connected and understood the natural world. And I think in some ways we can really learn from the importance of native plants, and there's obviously faunal species too. So anyway, that's great. I love that cultural stuff. All right, so I guess I should have been asking questions for everybody. I can open this one up depending on who it was that did the research on Earth Day, the history of Earth Day. For those of you, and I know Greg, you at least for sure worked on it. What was you guys were all born after Earth Day began. And Earth Day was just kind of getting going when I was a kid. But as really products of the Earth Day, actually multi-generations now, how do you guys see yourselves as being influenced by Earth Day? Or did you learn something in terms of the history that gave you an even deeper insight into the importance of Earth Day or what Earth Day means? Anybody? Maybe
Yeah, so before I started this whole project and everything, I honestly didn't know anything about the history of Earth Day, how it came to be, anything like that. And so it was actually really cool to go through and see how Earth Day over the years has just expanded across the globe and how it got started and why it got started, and basically just how they were doing these Vietnam War teach-ins at schools, and they decided, hey, like we could stem off of this and we could talk about just environmental issues from that. And so that was really cool. And I don't know, I have a really fond memory when I was like really young, because I used to live in San Diego, and huge Earth Day celebration in Balboa Park. And so I think in recent years, it's definitely harder, especially in the past 2 years, to get out and talk about Earth Day, just with the pandemic and everything, limiting us to stay inside. But I've definitely been to a couple Earth Days down in Fayetteville. It seems like Fayetteville usually has the more major events when it comes to Earth Day in the Northwest Arkansas area. But yeah, just doing this project alone, I don't know, it was a lot of fun just working on the butterfly garden and learning about them and learning about their migration path south and where they come from. I think all the ones that are coming through our garden are going to be coming from like Canada and the Northeast, and then going all the way down through till they reach Mexico.
And I love the fact there's seven or nine generations, and the last two live longer. Boy, I'd want to be a late generation.
Yeah.
How about you, Alexis? How do you see Earth Day in your experience?
Greg put it very well. I would say that, even in these last couple of years with the pandemic and everything, they've had a really good effort to make things virtual. They've had several Earth Day forums and presentations that you can go to online to keep it going. I even saw one the other day that was allowing people you could create almost a little character on their little forum, and then you could like have an Earth Day parade with your little character. So I think it's really cool how they're trying to include every single generation in this, because it is going to be a generational fix, and everybody now uses technology for everything. So I think it's really neat that they're going that route.
I think we have an irony of ironies, because technology sometimes is so almost cold and not necessarily in good symbiosis with the rest of the living world, yet we can use it to understand that world. So it's kind of fine line. And so as we go into the future, being able to work these things together in more of a symbiosis, I think is really ideal. Nathan, what part of the project did you mostly work on?
I did my research on the plants.
Oh, so you were geeking out on plants with the NOAA, huh?
Yeah.
What was your view then of in terms of native plants before you began this, and then once you did it, because obviously you went into great detail?
So before I did all this research, I really had no idea of what these plants, where they came from, but whenever I did my research, I started to realize that there's so much plants around the country that it's just very interesting what type of soils they can grow in moist or in poor soil. The uses that they can be used in all types of foods. It was just very interesting as I was researching through all the plants, and I really enjoyed doing the research for this type of project.
Excellent. Well, you did a lot of detailed research, obviously, and I learned some things. And I think one of the things that I'm doing a study actually of Benton County folks, and it involves the early to late 19th century. And what really stood out with me is that they knew so much about the native plants and had so many uses for them. We won't repeat all of them, though. I promise you, we don't need to hear about all of that, do we, again? But I thought that was fascinating. And I think what it can teach us is that our micro worlds, which can be very micro or regional or whatever it may be, but our micro worlds are a lot more valuable and important and interrelated than we often even think. And I think that's one of the things I get out of learning from your presentation. Okay, let's see. It seems like I had another question here. Oh, what I already heard a little bit of this maybe from Josie. When it comes to you guys applying what you've learned, I've learned a lot too over the years, and just for the rest of the audience, very briefly, in 2016, we began this idea for the Monarch Butterfly Garden to roll it into the sustainability project, which is part of the service learning program. And so over the years now, it's now 5 years from right about now that Nathan Murdoch and I literally dug the shape of a monarch butterfly in that area where the first bed is. And so now it's a 5-year period. And so I've learned a lot of stuff. And I want to say also, the student showed briefly some pictures, but they've doubled the size of the garden and are in the process of, we're going to plant the plants Sunday that are being donated. Well, actually, in this case, we have a grant to pay for those. So ultimately, they're very much working on that. So Josie, I just wanted to add that in, that everyone knows that we're doubling the size of the Monarch Garden. And then it looks like we're also going to be putting a patio in by the end of the fall semester. So there we go. Awesome. You guys this is the first bed that's already in, and then this is the area in between. That other bed would be here. And then there's going to be a nice patio. There's flagstone that AMO company, Alexis and Aaron Owen, donated. And we got these topsoil donated from the tractor company. Noah, what was the name of that company again?
Oh, sorry, I accidentally hit stop sharing. My bad.
I was using my pointer, and I bet you guys don't even see it.
So Alexis and Aaron's company is called AMO Enterprises, and then we got the soil donated by Tractor Supply Company.
And you got some stone from one of the stone companies, and
NWA Stone.
And y'all are donating your labor, and we always have to recognize Lori Scott, who is the primary partner for this project. Thank you so much, Lori. If your mic is open, and you students, let's please give Lori a hand for many years guiding us along, making sure we plant native plants that are in symbiosis with the 19 acres of native post oak savanna right behind in the right-hand corner in that picture. So the last question I would have, and Lori's got her hand up.
I did. I just want to say that, number one, this is one of the best presentations and certainly most comprehensive as far as the native plants go. And y'all being all those students out there listening, you guys are what make my job worth it every day. I was grinning the whole time you guys were presenting because I love native plants, and I could see so many perspective change, and that is so worthwhile. So thank you. Thank you guys.
Lori, when Noah
awesome.
Lori, when Noah was presenting, I thought, my God, Lori's going to be going crazy. I felt
like there's no way to emoji in that much.
That was kind of my goal.
Lectures, Lori, except for Noah was giving it, and now I find out Nathan was also involved. But amazing partnership with Lori and students over the year. And by the way, did I see Emily Patton on this list? I think Emily, weren't you involved in this a couple semesters ago? And so I'm almost sure Emily was. I may not remember the name correctly, but the last question is, what are y'all thinking about in terms of your own personal growing of milkweed or any native plants. Is this something you want to roll into your lives generally?
So I'll take that, or I'll start that one. I actually have, over the years, I live in Bella Vista, and I love nothing more than to have all the little creatures around my house come to me so I can watch them and, you know, be a modern day Snow White is what I always joke with my husband about. But I've tried to create, or I am in the process of creating, a natural and like edible landscaping that is plants that are specific to this area that not only can my family benefit from, but all of the creatures around here can have something to eat and a habitat to keep them safe, that kind of thing. So that's the goal. It may take me a while, but that is my final goal.
Excellent. That's exactly what we were talking about earlier, about knowing your world and the value of what's native to your world and being part of that world. All right, who else wants to answer that one? What about it, Noah? Are you going to put in a milkweed garden?
Well,
Right.
actually, I do have some bushes that did not survive the past 2 frosts. So I'm thinking about pulling those out, and I could use any number of these flowers to fill in that space. It's probably a good 3 yards of rock garden, but along my fence in my backyard, and this would be the perfect place for it.
Excellent. I'm glad. What about you, Nathan? You have a place yet you can do that?
Outside my backyard, we have a little like it's like by the it's just outside my yard where there's some dirt that we can put some plants in there. So that would be pretty cool to do.
I have a feeling Lori's raising her hand because she's going to volunteer to give us some plants, but I could be wrong. I better be.
Yeah, so I could give you plants, but what I would rather do is teach you guys how to stratify and germinate your own seeds. So
Okay.
this is not something that I would typically do or offer or dominate time with, but I have a guide. It's pretty comprehensive and easy to follow. And when I come meet you guys up on Sunday, I will bring you guys some seed, and I will bring copies of the protocols for stratification and germination. And then you're welcome to email me anytime you want to with questions. I have a closed YouTube channel that is a production from Dr. Marvin Galloway's environmental management class. That they produced a video that is a companion to this stratification and germination guide. So those of you that really want to dig in with the milkweed, we can keep talking.
Okay, great. And if anyone does want information about germinating milkweed, just let us know, and Lori will be glad to share that. And also, by the way, thank you, Marvin Galloway, if you're still here, for all of your interest over the years and for being a great colleague for a long time. Josie, sounds like you're going to put in some milkweed at some time. How about you, Greg? What's your plan? You got any?
So I actually live on the 2nd floor of an apartment complex.
That's not. Come on.
Yeah, where to put it around is a little bit limited. I think it's generally frowned upon to put plants.
I have species that can grow in pots.
What's that?
I said I have species that will grow in pots.
See, that's what I'm thinking, because around my house and just on my patio in general, I actually do need to get some plants in here, because that's something that I've been wanting to do for a while now. So I will totally take you up on that guide that you have, Lori, on Sunday when I come see you.
All right. Well, I'll be up there, and I'll run off some copies, and that won't do them in full color, but I'll run off some copies, and we'll have a quick little lesson on Sunday.
Absolutely. But I think more so for my parents' house, I think they would really love to have something like this, because every year, I mean, we get some butterflies that come down and come through their garden, but I think it'd be awesome to plant some milkweed out there just to see like how many more it attracts.
Grow it and they will come. I'm telling you,
Exactly.
y'all wait
That
till
is
you go out to the garden.
absolutely
We're gonna
correct.
be
Yes.
overwhelmed. All right, we're going to wrap it up. But before we do, I want to ask again, did someone take the participation role? Was someone, who has that, who can do that? Because it won't allow me to save the list of participants. Noah or Alexis, or is it Matt?
I think
Chris, I do have the attendance list.
Okay,
I
great.
downloaded
All right,
it and I
that's resolved.
emailed it to you a minute ago.
Okay, that's resolved. Now, I want to kind of briefly talk to the students at the very end, but to wrap it up, I wanted to say, wonderful job. I've learned from y'all. You've obviously done your work and you've made this a wonderful presentation to share with our community of people that are here. And what I'd like to do is to also say that this is at the end of the semester here, and we have one more event for service learning. It's the human rights presentation this Monday at 4:15. And Matt Evans, who's going to become the new service learning coordinator, for those of you who don't know, beginning in the, summer, but officially in the fall. And so I hope y'all can go to the human rights event at 4:15 this coming Monday. And if you don't have the link to the teams, just let us know. You can email the letters sl@nwac.edu and have any questions about service learning. Students that haven't done service learning yet, y'all want to consider this. And I guess what I would ask the students is just one last question. If you want to say anything about your experience before we get out of here. But before you do say anything, we're going to meet at 10 on Sunday, right?
Yes, 10 a.m.
And I'll bring the plants as close to 10 as I can, and we don't need them there immediately anyway. We'll plant those and then we'll do the bed and take care of that stone. So I think we got a good plan. And to end it for tonight, is there anything any of you as participants of the project would like to comment here at the end? Maybe one or two sentences each. Just we can start with do it alphabetically, and you guys figure the alphabet out. Well, Alexis doesn't want to because she's got one right here. But you go first, Alexis.
Okay.
One or two sentences.
I really appreciate all the hard work that everybody put into our group, and I just think that, we really banded together and created a really great area that is going to get even better once it's finalized, and we did that all in about 6 weeks time, so that's or a little bit more.
And also, if you've got your mic open, let's all give Alexis a special hand because she and her husband's company are donating quite a bit to this project. Thank you, AMO.
Thank you.
From what I can see, I see Gregory next. You got a couple, 3 sentences you want to say, Gregory?
Yeah, so going into this, I honestly didn't know what to expect. I just saw working on a butterfly garden, and it's turned into so much more than that. Being online for all of my classes, it's really nice to be able to get out and see some other people and work on this garden. And it's just been a really awesome experience. If anybody has the option of doing service learning, absolutely do it, 100%.
Excellent. Good job, Gregory. How about you, Josie? Are you still here?
Yes. I would just like to say thank you, huge thank you to Lori for giving us all that information about it. All of this, I really do. I love learning about it. And also to everybody in the group, because all of your research also taught me a lot, and I'm going to try to put that into my everyday life for sure.
Excellent. All right, Nathan.
I just want to say thank you to all the group members and all the donations. I'm very excited to see how the garden's going to end up looking, and it was just a great experience, and I would recommend for students here choosing for a project to do this one because it was a lot.
Very good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I know Noah's on the project. Is there anyone else on the project that hasn't spoken that would like to say anything? Did I get
I'll say
everybody?
something.
We had Brandy.
Brandy, where
Yeah.
are you, Brandy?
Hey. I just want to say thank you to all the donations and being able to be a part of this project. It was super great to get to meet all of you guys that are in this group with me, making a lot of new friends, actually getting to get out of the house and do something with this class and like classes in general. I mean, it's been super fun.
Excellent. I'm glad you enjoyed it. You could lift the rocks as well as anyone too, I remember. All right, is there anyone other, before, we're going to end with Noah. Is there anyone on the project that hasn't spoken other than Noah?
I'll speak.
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah. I'd just like to thank everyone on the project as well. I learned so much throughout this project. I joined the project kind of late, but I got involved and I learned so much through the donation process and all about the plants and actually getting to work. Huge shout out to Noah for doing all the work that he did do. I worked with him for a little bit and he did so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. Noah probably put in more work than anybody else in this group did by far. So definitely huge thank you to Noah.
I agree.
Noah was a man on a mission. We all know that.
Absolutely.
Who else? Is there anyone else on here who is on the project who would like to comment? Is there? All right. Noah, finish us off. Send us into the sunset.
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to thank every single one of our group members. This project would not have been possible without all of your help. I've stressed this during our group meetings, but none of us can do this alone, especially at this point in the virtual learning environment. This project has been a wonderful way to get out, actually be around physical beings, and then, I mean, connect with the earth as you put your hands in the dirt and you interact with these physical things that in the end mean so much to the earth. I'd like to shout out Alexis as well. She has been invaluable. I would have died from the stress of this project if it weren't for her answering every single text that I sent her, every single email, being there for me to call after a meeting where maybe something was especially stressful. She's been instrumental in this project. Same with Lori Scott. We would have been lost without Lori. There was no way that we would have the expertise to.
I think, Noah, you wouldn't have been lost. You, in the end, found your way.
Yeah, exactly. With Lori's help.
Yes, amazing people. All of you have done a wonderful job. I'm proud of all of you. And one of the wonderful things is not only working together, learning and teaching each other, but you get to go out to an amazing garden, and we're going to have the patio in the fall. You can go there whenever you want, and when you all see that both those gardens bloom, and you see all the blooms, all the plants there, and the millions of bugs. I walked through it and bugs everywhere, and I loved it, and bees and stuff. And so I felt like I was last summer when it bloomed. So when y'all do this, you got to go see it then, because when you walk through it, you know how bees are. It's like, but when you walk through it, you don't get that feeling. You're just walking through a world that is interacting, and you're just kind of passing through, even though you're a part of it too. All right, any last comments by any of the members or anyone in the audience? I think it's been a wonderful presentation, and I think we can call this a very successful event, and we can call it a good night if everybody's in agreement.
Excellent work.
All right, great.
I agree. It's the best group
Thanks
yet.
everybody for coming and watching our presentation.
Great job, y'all. I learned a lot, and I think a lot of people did.
Yep.
Thank you.
You guys have a good night. Thanks, you guys.
You too. Thanks so
Yeah.
much.